The arrival of the Dominion. The stars had never seemed so menacing before they came. For centuries, humanity had gazed upward with hope and wonder, dreaming of what might exist beyond our atmosphere. No one expected that when first contact finally happened, it would come in the form of the Dominion, a vast interstellar empire that saw Earth as nothing more than another conquest, another soft world to be absorbed into their collection. The Dominion warships appeared without warning, massive constructs of dark metal that blotted out the sun as they descended through Earth's atmosphere. Their vessels defied known physics, hovering silently over major cities across the globe. For 3 days they simply watched, scanning, analyzing, judging. On the 4th day, they spoke. "People of Earth," the message boomed in perfect English, echoing across every communication device on the planet. "We are the Dominion of 7 stars. Your world has been assessed and found wanting. You will submit to our authority or face extinction. Your technology is primitive. Your defenses are inadequate. Your species is soft." At the Berkeley Quantum Research Facility in California, Dr. Ilara Chen listened to the transmission with growing anger rather than fear. She was 34 with short black hair streaked with premature gray, the result of years pushing the boundaries of quantum mechanics. Her colleagues stood frozen around the lab, faces pale with shock, but Ilara's mind was already racing, calculating possibilities. "They're wrong," she murmured, more to herself than anyone else. "They're making a mistake." "What difference does it make?" Dr. Harrison, her research partner, replied bitterly. "Did you see those ships? We don't have anything that can touch them." Ilara didn't answer. She was already moving toward her workstation, pulling up data from the quantum field sensors she'd installed across the campus months ago as part of her research. The sensors had been designed to detect quantum fluctuations, but now they were picking up something else. Unusual energy patterns radiating from the Dominion ship hovering over San Francisco. Earth's governments tried to negotiate. Some attempted to fight back. Neither approach worked. The Dominion's weapons cut through Earth's most advanced military technology like it was made of paper. Cities fell. Governments collapsed. Within a week, half the planet was under Dominion control. The supreme commander of the Dominion forces, a towering figure named Vexer, established his command center in what remained of the United Nations building in New York. His 8-foot frame dwarfed the human representatives sent to discuss terms of surrender. His skin was metallic, reflecting light in iridescent patterns, and his 4 eyes regarded humans with undisguised contempt. "Your resistance is illogical," Vexor stated to the trembling human delegation. "The Dominion has conquered worlds far more advanced than yours. We have subjugated species with technology thousands of years beyond your comprehension. You are soft creatures, barely evolved beyond the primates from which you descended." As the footage of this meeting spread across whatever communication networks remained operational, Ilara watched with narrowed eyes. She noticed something no one else seemed to catch: a faint distortion in the air around Vexor, a shimmer that corresponded exactly with the energy signatures her sensors had detected. "They're using quantum fields," she whispered, excitement cutting through her exhaustion. For 3 days straight she had been analyzing the data, sleeping only when her body gave her no choice. Their technology, their weapons, their shields, it's all based on quantum manipulation. And quantum mechanics happened to be her specialty. The Berkeley campus had been largely abandoned as people fled inland, away from the Dominion ships concentrated on the coasts. This gave Ilara the space and resources she needed. She converted her lab into a workshop, cannibalizing equipment to build something new, a quantum disruptor that might, if her calculations were correct, interfere with Dominion technology. Prototype was crude, resembling a bulky rifle cobbled together from laboratory equipment and computer parts. It had only enough power for a single burst, one shot, one chance to prove that humanity wasn't as helpless as the Dominion believed. Ilara knew she couldn't take on a warship, but intelligence gathered by the remaining military forces indicated that a smaller Dominion patrol would be passing near Berkeley, scouting for resistance cells. It would be her best opportunity. The night was eerily quiet as Alara positioned herself on the roof of the physics building. The campus below lay in darkness, power having been cut days ago. In the distance, the lights of the Dominion patrol created an eerie glow against the fog rolling in from the bay. 3 Dominion soldiers moved through the campus, their armored forms gliding more than walking. Each stood 7 feet tall, armed with weapons that could disintegrate matter on contact. They communicated through a series of clicks and whistles, occasionally stopping to scan buildings with handheld devices. Alara's heart pounded as she adjusted the settings on her quantum disruptor. According to her calculations, the frequency needed to be precisely tuned to the quantum field signatures she had detected. Too high or too low, and it would have no effect at all. The patrol moved closer, now directly below her position. Alara took a deep breath, aimed at the lead soldier, and fired. The disruptor made no sound as it released its charge, just a barely perceptible ripple in the air that shot downward. For a moment, nothing happened, and Alara's heart sank. Then, the lead soldier stumbled, its armor suddenly flickering with sparks of blue energy. The creature inside let out a high-pitched shriek that made Alara's teeth ache. The other 2 soldiers turned in confusion, their weapons raised, but they too began to convulse as the quantum disruption spread through their connected field systems. All 3 collapsed to the ground, their armor continuing to spark and smoke. Alara could hardly believe it had worked. With trembling hands, she made her way down to examine the fallen soldiers. The quantum disruption had completely fried their systems, rendering their advanced technology useless. The beings inside were unconscious but alive, proof that the Dominion wasn't invincible. She worked quickly, stripping components from their equipment and gathering data from their devices. Every piece of information could be valuable. As she worked, a plan began to form in her mind. If she could scale up the disruptor, create more of them, distribute the technology to resistant cells around the world. A sudden explosion in the distance made her flinch. The Dominion was razing Oakland now, punishment for some act of defiance. The orange glow of fires reflected off the low clouds, a grim reminder of what was at stake. As dawn broke, Alara made contact with what remained of the resistance network. Her message was simple but powerful. The Dominion can be hurt. I can show you how. Word spread quickly. Small victories began to accumulate as resistance cells equipped with makeshift quantum disruptors struck at Dominion patrols and outposts. The aliens responded with increased brutality, leveling entire neighborhoods in retaliation. But they couldn't stop the spread of Alara's technology. In his command center, Supreme Commander Vexer received the reports with growing rage. What had begun as a standard conquest was becoming problematic. These humans, these soft primitive creatures, had somehow identified a vulnerability in Dominion technology that no other species had ever exploited. Find the source, he commanded his officers. Find whoever is responsible and bring them to me. The Dominion will not be defied by primitives. It didn't take long for the Dominion to trace the quantum technology back to Berkeley, to identify Alara Chen as the source of their problems. As night fell 1 month after their arrival, a full battalion of Dominion forces descended on the campus with orders to capture her at any cost. But Alara wasn't there. She had already moved to a new location, taking her research and prototypes with her. What the Dominion found instead was a network of quantum disruptors rigged as traps, each one taking down more of their forces. As Vexer watched the casualties mount through his command interface, he felt something unfamiliar. Doubt. The humans were not behaving as the Dominion's models had predicted. They were adapting, learning, fighting back with unexpected resourcefulness. Supreme Commander, one of his officers reported, we have intercepted a transmission. The human, responsible for the quantum weapons, is broadcasting a message. Vexer's 4 eyes narrowed. Show me. The screen flickered and Alara Chen's face appeared. She looked exhausted but determined, her eyes burning with defiance. My name is Dr. Alara Chen, she began, her voice steady. I'm speaking to the Supreme, Commander of the Dominion forces. You called us soft, You called us primitive. You thought we would surrender without a fight. You were wrong. She held up a small device, a more refined version of her original quantum disruptor, now sleek and efficient. This is just the beginning, she continued. Humans have something you clearly don't understand. We never give up. We never stop learning, adapting, fighting back. For every one of us you kill, 10 more will take up the fight. You can destroy our cities, but you cannot break our spirit. Vexor stared at the screen, his metallic features unreadable. This human female, this scientist, had done what military forces across the planet had failed to do. She had found a weakness in the Dominion and exploited it. More than that, she had given her people something dangerous. Hope. You have two choices, Ilara concluded. You can leave our planet peacefully, or you can stay and find out just how unsoft humanity can be. The transmission ended, leaving Vexor in silence. For the first time in his long career of conquest, he faced a species that refused to follow the expected pattern of submission. These humans, with their primitive technology and fragile bodies, had proven themselves to be anything but soft. The real war for Earth was just beginning. The strength of humanity winter descended upon what remained of human civilization as the war with the Dominion entered its third month. Snow fell on abandoned cities and battlefields alike, covering the scars of destruction with deceptive beauty. In the remote mountains of Colorado, inside a repurposed military bunker, Ilara Chen stood before a room filled with the unlikeliest of warriors, scientists, engineers, hackers, and mechanics from around the world who had answered her call. The Dominion made a fundamental error in their assessment of Earth, Ilara explained, her breath visible in the cold air of the bunker's main chamber. They measured our advancement by our visible technology, our primitive rockets, our crude, nuclear weapons, our basic AI. What they failed to understand is that humanity's true strength isn't in what we've already built, but in our capacity to innovate when pushed to the edge. The wall behind her displayed schematics for the next generation of quantum disruptors, now small enough to be carried in one hand. What had begun as a desperate experiment in her lab had evolved into a sophisticated weapon system, refined through trial and error by some of the brightest minds on the planet. Their technology is still vastly superior to ours, admitted Dr. Kamau, a quantum physicist from Kenya who had traveled across 3 continents to join Ilara's team. But they've become dependent on it. They've forgotten how to fight without their advantages. Ilara nodded. Exactly. And that's why we're going to win. Outside the bunker, the world continued to change. The Dominion's initial strategy of overwhelming force had given way to a more cautious approach. They had withdrawn from less strategic areas, concentrating their forces around major resource centers and what remained of Earth's largest cities. The quantum disruptors had forced them to adapt, to develop countermeasures. But each adaptation made their systems more complex and ultimately more vulnerable. Human resistance had evolved as well. What had begun as isolated cells fighting desperate battles had coalesced into a coordinated global movement. Ilara's quantum technology had given them a fighting chance, but it was the human spirit, the refusal to surrender, that sustained the resistance through the darkest days. Supreme Commander Vexor had never experienced such persistent defiance. The Dominion had conquered hundreds of worlds and none had resisted like Earth. As he paced the command deck of his flagship, now permanently stationed in high orbit as a precaution against ground attacks, his frustration was evident. Their resistance is illogical, he insisted to his war council. They cannot win. They must know this. Even with their quantum weapons, we still possess overwhelming superiority. With respect, Supreme Commander, ventured his chief scientist, the humans display a psychological trait we have not encountered before. They appear capable of continuing to fight even when victory is statistically impossible. Explain, Vexor demanded. They have a concept they call hope. It appears to override logical assessment of their situation. The longer they resist, the stronger this trait becomes, spreading through their population like a contagion. Vexor's metallic features shifted in the Dominion equivalent of a scowl. Then we must extinguish this hope. locate their primary resistance leader, this Dr. Chen, and eliminate her. Without their quantum technology, they will have no choice but to accept reality. The Dominion deployed their most advanced hunter units, biomechanical trackers designed to infiltrate human settlements and identify resistance leaders. They came closer to capturing Alara several times, forcing her to constantly relocate. But each narrow escape taught her more about how the Dominion operated, revealing new weaknesses to exploit. In a makeshift lab in the ruins of Chicago, Alara made her breakthrough. She had been studying a captured Dominion communication device, tracing the quantum entanglement patterns that allowed them instantaneous communication across vast distances. What she discovered changed everything. "They're all connected," she explained to her team, excitement making her hands shake. "Their entire command structure, their weapons, their ships, everything operates through a centralized quantum network. It's what gives them their advantage, but it's also their greatest vulnerability." "You're talking about a master key," said Torres, a former cybersecurity specialist who had lost his family in the initial invasion. "One access point that could compromise their entire system." Alara nodded. "If we can infiltrate their network, we could potentially disable their technology across the entire planet simultaneously. Not just disrupt it temporarily like our weapons do, but shut it down completely." "The ultimate quantum disruptor," Kamau breathed. "Exactly," Alara said. "But there's a catch. To access their network at that level, we need to get to their central command ship, the one in orbit, and we need their Supreme Commander's direct neural interface." The room fell silent as the implications sank in. What Alara was proposing wasn't just another guerrilla attack. It was a direct assault on the heart of the Dominion's power on Earth. It seemed impossible. "How do we get to a ship in orbit?" Torres finally asked. Alara's smile was grim. "We don't. We make them come to us." The plan was audacious, perhaps suicidal. Using their understanding of Dominion quantum communication, they would broadcast a signal mimicking a catastrophic failure in one of Earth's largest remaining nuclear facilities. The threat of a radiation disaster that could contaminate valuable resources would force the Dominion to respond in person rather than simply bombarding the area from orbit. When Supreme Commander Vexor himself arrived to oversee the situation, they would be waiting. For 3 weeks, they prepared. Resistance cells around the world launched coordinated attacks to draw Dominion attention away from the abandoned nuclear facility in eastern France, where Alara's team had established their trap. They modified their quantum disruptors to create a convincing false signature that would read as an imminent meltdown on Dominion sensors. The day of reckoning arrived with the first snow of December. As predicted, the Dominion responded to the crisis with a significant force, unwilling to risk losing access to Europe's resources, and as Alara had hoped, Supreme Commander Vexor chose to oversee the operation personally, believing it might be an opportunity to finally crush the human resistance in one decisive action. Alara watched from her hiding place as the Dominion command shuttle descended, flanked by fighter escorts. Vexor emerged, his towering frame encased in advanced armor that glinted in the winter sunlight. He was surrounded by elite guards, their weapons sweeping the area for any threat. "Primitive humans," he announced, his voice amplified to echo across the facility. "I know you are here. I know this is a trap. Your deception lacks subtlety, just as your resistance lacks purpose. Show yourselves, and I will consider granting you a merciful end." Silence answered him. The Dominion forces spread out, scanning buildings and rubble with their advanced sensors. They didn't detect the quantum dampening field Alara's team had established throughout the facility, a new application of their technology that masked their presence. Alara took a deep breath, her finger hovering over the detonator. The charges they had planted weren't conventional explosives, but quantum pulse generators designed to temporarily overload Dominion armor systems. They would have seconds, perhaps less, to take advantage of the confusion. "Now," she whispered into her communicator and pressed the button. The world erupted into chaos. The pulse generators activated simultaneously, sending waves of quantum disruption across the facility. Dominion soldiers staggered, their armor systems failing, their weapons offline. Vexor himself stumbled, the normally graceful Supreme Commander, suddenly clumsy as his enhanced systems malfunctioned. Resistance fighters emerged from hiding places, wielding quantum disruptors and conventional weapons alike. The battle was fierce but brief. Without their technological advantages, the Dominion forces found themselves outmatched by human determination. Alara fought her way toward Vexor, who was recovering faster than his subordinates, his armor systems already adapting to the disruption. He saw her coming, recognition flashing in his four eyes. "Dr. Chen," he said, his voice now lacking its electronic amplification. "The architect of this resistance. I underestimated you." "You underestimated all of us," Ilara replied, raising her specialized disruptor. This one was different from the others, designed not to disable but to interface, to connect with the Supreme Commander's neural link to the Dominion network. Vexor moved with surprising speed for his size, lunging toward her. Ilara fired. The quantum beam struck him squarely in the center of his armored chest, but instead of damaging him, it created a connection, a bridge between her device and his neural interface. The Supreme Commander froze, his body rigid as Ilara activated the second phase of her plan. Through Vexor's neural link, she now had direct access to the Dominion command network. Her fingers flew across her device, uploading the virus her team had created, a quantum algorithm designed to cascade through their entire system. Vexor's eyes widened as he realized what was happening. "What have you done?" he gasped, his voice filled with genuine fear for the first time. "I've shown you that humans are anything but soft," Ilara answered. Above them, visible even through the daylight sky, the massive Dominion warships began to power down, their anti-gravity systems failing. Across the planet, Dominion technology was shutting down as the virus spread through their quantum network, corrupting systems, breaking connections. Vexor sank to his knees, the weight of his now useless armor pulling him down. Without their technology, the Dominion were just another species, strong, certainly, but no longer godlike in their power. "You cannot win," he insisted, even as his forces retreated around him. "The Dominion spans galaxies. They will send more ships, more soldiers. They will burn your world to ash for this defiance." Ilara shook her head. "No, they won't, because you're going to tell them not to." She held up her device, showing him the transmission she had prepared, a message to the Dominion homeworld, sent through their own communication network, bearing the Supreme Commander's authentication signature. This message explains that Earth is under the protection of a previously unknown quantum defense system, one capable of neutralizing Dominion technology. It advises that any further attempts to conquer Earth will result in catastrophic losses. It recommends that the Dominion recognize Earth as a sovereign world and establish peaceful diplomatic relations instead. Vexor stared at her in disbelief. "They will know it is false." "Will they? It has your authentication. And by the time they could send someone to verify, we'll have reverse-engineered enough of your technology to make the threat real." The Supreme Commander was silent for a long moment, his alien features unreadable. Then, surprisingly, a sound emerged from him that Ilara recognized as laughter. "In all my cycles of conquest," he said, "I have never encountered a species like yours. You were judged as soft because your bodies break easily, because your technology is primitive. We failed to measure what truly matters, the strength of your will, the adaptability of your minds." He looked up at the sky where his once mighty ships now drifted powerless. "Send your message, Dr. Chen. The Dominion will listen. And perhaps we have something to learn from Earth after all." 6 months later, Ilara stood on the newly constructed diplomatic platform in Geneva, watching as the first official Dominion diplomatic vessel landed. The war was over, Earth was rebuilding, and humanity had earned something no one could have predicted: respect among the stars. The Dominion had withdrawn their military forces, replacing them with diplomats and cultural observers. The transition hadn't been easy and distrust remained on both sides, but a fragile peace had taken hold. Earth had been formally recognized as a sovereign world, not a conquest. As Supreme Commander, now Ambassador, Vexor approached across the platform. Ilara reflected on how much had changed. The Dominion still possessed technology far beyond Earth's capabilities, but the gap was closing rapidly as humanity incorporated what they had learned during the conflict. Dr. Chen, Vexor greeted her, inclining his head in the human gesture of respect he had adopted. Your world continues to surprise me. Your people rebuild with remarkable speed. That's what humans do, Ilara replied. We fall, we get back up, we build something better. Vexor was quiet for a moment, his four eyes scanning the horizon where the rebuilt city gleamed in the sunset. The Dominion has conquered many worlds, Dr. Chen, but Earth is the first to conquer us in return, not through force, but by showing us a strength we did not know existed. Ilara smiled. Never underestimate a species that refuses to give up hope. As they walked together toward the diplomatic chamber, Ilara caught sight of a memorial that had been erected in the center of the platform. A simple sculpture depicting a human hand and a Dominion hand reaching toward each other. Beneath it was inscribed a simple message that had become Earth's new motto among the stars. We are not soft, we are human.